It's time for our weekly Sunday school lesson. Tonight, as I do this for you, I've also got a group this way, and I'm going to be looking this way a lot tonight, so I hope you'll understand it's just how we're set up for this session. We're doing a Sunday school lesson for August 23, next Sunday. It's entitled Relational Foundations. And the theme is God created humans to be relational, with the greatest relationship being between Him and His people. Now our study is the first of two on the Song of Solomon. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to spend more time in some background information than I normally do and less time in the text. So I'm encouraging you to read your lesson and read the Song of Songs. And there's several reasons for that. Back when Maria and I were teaching high school Sunday school, we encouraged them to embark on a Bible reading program, and they did. And this is going back to when I was in seminary, and she was in her first job. And, so we were teaching high school kids, and they came, I think it was, the Song of Solomon, and came to Sunday school one morning and said, "Have you read that?" And I said, "Well, yes." And one of the boys looked at me and said, "Do you know my mama's read that?" and we got a kick out of that. But we also discovered that there were some pretty shocking things, even in Genesis, for folks that had never read it, or for young people who had never read it. And so what we're looking at is a book that takes a grown-up approach and a grown-up attitude. And it's helpful, too, if you take a historical approach and understand that this was written as a poem a long time ago, when people's language and thoughts and understandings were very different than ours. And so that does make a difference. And so we're going to spend some time in the background, and I hope that you will continue to do the harder work even on your own. Now, the lesson itself is chapter 2, verse 15 through chapter 3, verse 5. But I'm going to start with chapter 1, verse 1. And mine says, Solomon's finest song. And that's how it starts. And that's really the title of this song. And some of yours will not say finest song. It will say something else. It might just say this Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, something of that nature. And really what it does mean is just that, the finest song, the best song. And we need to remember that it is a song, and it's considered one of the best. And throughout history, there have been some surprising people who have said that this is one of their favorite books. And preachers who have preached hundreds of times, literally, out of the first two chapters. And it has been one that has caught on in many, many ways. And it's also one that when we misunderstand it, it's put aside and moved off, put on the shelf. So as we look at it, we want to think of several things. It is still one of the works of Solomon, and as such is considered to be part of wisdom literature. And there's some debate on that too, but generally it's considered wisdom. Now, since it is wisdom, I think that tells us something right off the bat. There's more behind this than just a poem. And there's some truth here that needs to be learned. In other words, we've studied through Proverbs, and we've noticed that God's wisdom has been declared to us, and this is how we're supposed to live. The same principle probably ought to be applied to the Song of Songs. That this is God's wisdom being shared with His people, and we need to look at it in that way. Now, I said it's being called a couple different things: Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, Canticles. You'll find that from time to time in your readings. And then sometimes it's just abbreviated as song or songs. And I've seen it in all of those ways. It is, as I said, part of the wisdom literature, but even then, it stands alone. There's no other literature like it in the Old Testament. There is other literature like it in the world's literature. It's not unique in that sense. It's unique in the biblical sense. fact, some say that this is very, very similar to Egyptian love songs, love poems of the same era. And I suspect that that is indeed the case. And what that says to us is not that, and some people try to say, well, the Bible just borrowed from secular literature and other things. No, I don't think it's saying that at all. I think what it does say is when you have whole cultures that are writing similar materials, that it will say to us that the people who read it readily understood it. They reacted well to it. They knew what was going on. It wasn't foreign to them. It wasn't like, whoa, who would have thought of that? But it was typical for their time. And as such, and it's credited to Solomon, as such, he was able to write a poem, write a love poem, write a song that the people could relate to. And so I think that is valuable in understanding it. The Song of Songs is one of 5 books that were read during the holy convocations and the religious holidays. And this one was typically read at least at some point, not early on, but later, after many years, it was read at Passover. Ruth, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, and Esther were also read at the different holidays. So depending on which holiday it was, this one was Passover, another one would be read at Booths, another was read at Purim, and so forth. So it was a special book. And you can imagine coming to your worship experience and knowing in advance that at some point we're going to gather together and we're going to read this holy word of God. And so that's how it was used. It's probably the one book that has more variety of interpretation than any other in the New Testament. And that includes Revelation and parts of Daniel and so forth. It has really, really, really been interpreted in so many different ways. One way that was popular for many, many years was allegory. Well, this means this means this, and this means this. And so they would assign symbolic meaning to every aspect of it. That's generally not considered accurate these days. Not at all. Some have said, in fact, I've got a book in my office by the author who says that Song of Solomon was actually used at funerals. It was a funeral song. And the only way I could understand that is to see some of these things in movies where you see like a soldier is killed and the men all gather together and they lift their toast and they drink and then they have a party in the honor of the defeated or killed soldier. And it would be that type of thing. They would say their goodbyes and then they'd have a big feast and a festival. And so they thought it might have been shared in that way. I have read that it is a counterpart to Proverbs being a series of instructions from a father to his son. And I have read where some people think that the Song of Songs is a book of instructions from a mother to her daughter, and it serves as a counterpart. And you can see some of that in the lesson tonight as the lesson writer goes through it. And I can see as I was reading it, I can see where this is good instruction for a young person who's in love, who has a boyfriend, who is engaged to get married. And it covers the emotions and all the things that are going on in that young lady's life. And how would somebody know that unless they had also been through it at some point in their life as well? So you can see that. There are a lot of other ways to look at it. Some think of it as a wedding song. So there are a lot of different things that are shared with this and considered. And it just it's got a rich variety of interpretations. You can go to the bookstore, same bookstore, get 2 books, one right next to the other, and get very different interpretations. I personally think you take all of those, and they all have some aspect that sounds kind of good to me, and helps me to get the overall picture of what's here. It's interesting that it's even in the Old Testament, and because it's not like other books. And yet, through history, some rabbis have taken this and said, this is the sweetest of songs, and it's the best part of the entire Old Testament. They love it. And what's interesting is in the New Testament era, even in the early church, with some of the church fathers, they considered this one of the best books in the Bible. And what really makes it interesting is some of those guys were monks who didn't have a girlfriend. Some were ascetic, meaning they separated from society and would live in isolation many times. And yet they would write and say, this is the richest of books. It is the finest of songs. Because what they see in this is a love story, but some of them see a love story between God and his people. And others see a love story where it represents Christ and his church. Now, I think some of that's interpretive. They're trying to get out of it what they can. I don't really take it to that extreme personally, but I think it's interesting to note that in history, there are folks that do that. And they read it, and they study it, and then they start going, wow, what a great book. And so that's part of it. What is it? I've called it a song 2 or 3 times. Sometimes it reads like a play, like a drama. But the commentary that I read, said it's definitely not a play or a drama, even though you have 5 different participants or characters. It's not that at all. And the commentary reminds us that it truly is a song and needs to be remembered or studied as a song. And like even modern songs, you have phrases that are representative. You have phrases that are not intended to be literal, they're figurative. And sometimes it's hard to tell in some songs which phrase or paragraph is supposed to be figurative and which is supposed to be literal. It's very difficult. And that even comes out in our textbook for tonight. And he says, in fact, we read the first one, that's verse 5. He says, this is a tough verse. And it's hard for us to understand. And so, there it is. Now, what do I think it is? Along with the commentary, Dwayne Garrett wrote it, the New American Commentary Series. I agree with him. I think it is what it is. I think we should take it pretty much at face value. I think it's a love song. I think it's a love song between a man and a woman. Sometimes he speaks and sometimes she speaks. And I think we need to take it as that. And one of the reasons is because I think the Bible, even though it's holy and inspired, is also a very human book. And it doesn't shy away from any aspect of our humanity. And it shouldn't shy away from romantic love either. And it doesn't. Can it have deeper, richer meaning? Yes. But I think that we have a love song. The love song does a number of things for us. It tells us how love should be expressed. It tells us how it should be patient. It tells us how couples should relate together. It indicates for us clues for a happy and long marriage. It does a lot of wonderful things for us. Sometimes the language is different. You know, if I said some of these things to my wife that said here, she'd slap me. Not because it's dirty, but because it's not our normal thing, you know. If I looked at it and said, your teeth look like coconuts or something like that. You know, it's just it's a different culture. And we need to understand that. We need to get that. And when we do, then we start to get an idea of what it's about. Solomon certainly was not bashful, but the lesson does a really good job in helping us to see a little bit through the language to understand. For the what he's talking about in that, I believe it's even in the first section. Chapter 2, verse 15. I said 5 a minute ago. Verse 15. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in bloom. What? I've wondered about that phrase for years. And if our Sunday school writer is correct, it's pretty simple. Foxes ruin vineyards. And when the vineyard's ready to be harvested, and they get in, they mess it up. So what's that saying about romantic love? Well, stop all the little problems before they become big problems. Makes sense, doesn't it? Using a poetic language. You know, our vineyards are in bloom. Hey, we're in love. We're getting ready to get married. Let's not let anything mess this up. And then that would continue on through married life as well. So the first section, the first of three, is preventative care. And we need to do well to prevent the problems that often or can often occur in a marriage situation. They ask us to list some things that might be little foxes. Have y'all noticed that little things add up to big things? And so if you want to do that exercise, just list some things that people will have problems with. They used to do a lot of marital counseling, not so much now, and my time's about out. But one of the things we'd sit and talk about in one session is little things. A couple looking like, what? Little things. I said, yeah. Do you squeeze the toothpaste tube or do you roll it up from the bottom? Little things. Little things. Okay. Second thing is to build trust. My love is mine, and I am his. And the third thing is restraint. And here's that most unusual story. She wakes up at night and she's missing her boyfriend. He's not even there. Not supposed to be there. So she goes out to look for him. And when she finds him, she takes him home. But guess what? Not to her room. She takes him to her mama's room. Safety there. Okay? And so the lesson writer says restraint is required. That's something modern young people don't express really hardly at all. And they need that, and they need this lesson. Well, I'm way past my allotted time. I wanted to spend a little bit of time in background so that maybe that would help as you read the lesson. And then next week, we'll do the last lesson in our quarter, and then we'll start the new study in Isaiah. Okay, God bless you.